Hello and welcome to lecture 10. We've gotten here. It's so perfect that we're at lecture 10 and today is the journey through the temples 10 through 12. We're going to move from Capricorn through Aquarius and to Pisces. And so hopefully at this point you've watched the rest of the temple videos. For this video, I am going to summarize and recap all of the temples in a very brief way to lead into the Capricorn temple, because as you know by now, everything stacks. Everything is a result of the thing that came before it, and everything has a polar relationship with what is exactly across from it. And the polar house of Capricorn is the polar temple of Capricorn is Cancer. And so really feeling into the temple of Cancer again to understand the temple of Capricorn is going to give you some extra levels of insight on this temple. So I actually also received some new downloads about these temples as I've been very reflective throughout the course of getting this material recorded. And so I'm also going to share another layer that I received about each of these temples that's related to the dimensions. I'm in conversation with some individuals right now and listening to material about these dimensions. And there's a lot of conversation about the fifth dimension and the fourth dimension, the third dimension. And so I've been asking a lot of my own questions about these. And I see that the temple spaces of the zodiac are related to the dimensions. And so I'm gonna just give that extra layer in this talk as well. So, boy, it's been a long time since I recorded the first, okay, yeah. From Aries to Gemini, I talked about how we started out with a singularity. We start out with the one, and that the Aries temple is an answer to a question. It's a response. It's a claiming of something that, yes, I exist. I am, and I am love. I am individuated. I am something. I am able to look at myself because I am separating from the oneness so that I can see that there's another. And so that is essentially the energy of Aries. And of course, go back to that video if you need a deeper recap. But as soon as there's that individuation of I am, or the yes that we claim, all of a sudden that starts create that creates a polarity. It creates a magnetism. It creates like forces that all of a sudden can interplay between each other. So the second house of Taurus is the matter that's created from that statement, or the magnetism that's created from that statement that begins to spin the particles around and create the foundational resources or the foundational material that all experiences can be drawn through. It's like the beginning of matter happens in that Taurus temple. And so we look to the temple of Taurus to see where the materials, the raw materials of our life, our experiences, our choices, what we're claiming, what do we have there? What are we gonna experience that initiated impulse through? So it's like the material. Then in the third space, the Gemini temple. In the Gemini temple, we suddenly have a third entity that's called perception. So we have, from the singularity, we then get the polarity, and then we get the perceptual space that's able to actually look from an awareness, an observation, from a mind, or from like a conscious space that wow, look at all of this that I am. Look at all of this that I am creating. Look at all of this that I have as my resources. The space of Gemini is where we sort of label everything, or just create some sort of abstract consciousness of what is. And so instead of just experiencing something in Taurus as if it's a part of yourself, you're actually seeing that these things are separate parts, and you're beginning to have some conscious discernment as to like, this is me and that is you. This is mine and that is yours. I like this and I don't like that. It's like, it's just the part. I say that I think that the third temple of Gemini is like the mind, the perception, the awareness, or the observer. So then the fourth dimension of Cancer, the fourth temple of Cancer, is the meaning, the story, the response. It's this deeper awareness of what it means that we are perceiving ourselves as separate, what it means that there's a gap or a space between you and me, or between baby and mother, or between having a need and needing it met. That there's an emotional felt component to what we make that mean. And we have these sensations or emotions that we put story to, essentially. And so the fourth dimension, or the fourth temple of Cancer, has to do with the stories and even the subconscious stories that we relate to in our vulnerability, or we relate to in the gap between how our need was met and how it wasn't. And so I believe that fourth dimension also includes the sensation of time. So we would have the sensation of time between the separation of my need being me feeling the need and my need being met, or even like you could feel it as the child not knowing how much time will pass before it's reunited with the mother, in like a separation anxiety situation. And I use examples like this to kind of give tangible, like observable story to this, but we experience the energy of Cancer like anytime we have nostalgia. Like if you like have children and you look at your children and you see that they're growing, and you suddenly remember that, oh, gosh, they've grown so much. They used to be so young, and gosh, that one day they're going to get old and all of this will be over. That it also is a vulnerable experience that I feel is part of the temple of Cancer, that makes us feel very vulnerable and emotional about the concept of time. And of course, time is also a story or a meaning that we're making. There's no such thing as time when we're in the perceptual space of like perceiving between like and dislike and this and that and me and you. That's not really a time space. That's more of a abstractive space. Then when we get this fourth house of time, when we get the fourth dimension, or the fourth temple of Cancer, and we start making all those meanings and stories, I feel like this is a space where a lot of density can be created, or a lot of stuckness can be created, or a lot of like traumatic cycles can be created, because we cycle these stories over and over and over. And so getting into the fifth temple of Leo, or the fifth dimension, is sort of challenging, because we have experienced the dimension of time, and we've experienced the dimension of story, and that sort of sits like a layer between us and just being fully present. And the presence is different from the presence we experienced in Gemini when we were perceiving everything, because the presence includes the dimension of sensation, the dimension of emotion. So what I feel the temple of Leo, the gift of Leo, or the presence of Leo, or the fifth dimension, if everyone's talking about 5D right now, it has to do with fully letting ourselves on every single layer experience life, like experience being alive, and completely letting go of the sensation of time, even though we have an awareness of time. It's almost like the awareness of time, the awareness of temporary reality, of finality of life, or mortality that we experience in the Temple of Cancer, gives us an even sweeter experience of presence in Leo temple. Because gosh, like, if it's true that all of this could expire and every single moment is temporary, then I'm going to take in completely and completely engage in the presence of this one moment without judgment of it, without resistance to any of the sensations of it. Like the other night I stubbed my toe on on something, and it hurt so bad. And the person I was with said, "Wow, you just received a lot of information just now." And I was like, wow, yeah, that's another way of looking at it, right? Like, instead of calling it a story and judging the pain as bad, shifting my perception to the presence of that experience, of the information I was experiencing, suddenly brought me even more into the presence. And I couldn't even tell you if the experience of the pain was good or bad in that moment. It was just the experience. And it brought all of my presence to my foot. Like, I was very, very present to my foot. And what I'm understanding about 5D and the Temple of Leo now, it's also related. Okay, this is a little bit of a side tangent. I promise we'll get to the temples of Capricorn through Pisces, but this is important because the temples of Cancer, Leo, and Virgo are the foundation human experiential, like, these are the tangible dimensions that set us up for the dimensions of Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So just giving this like foundation. And this is also why a lot of people are talking about 5D right now, because if you're aware of how the precession of the equinoxes work, I'm not going to go into it completely right now, but maybe it'll be a whole nother talk about that. But what we understand is that every 2,500 or some odd years, we move from an era or a age, right, to another age. So we were just in the age of Pisces, and now we're moving to the age of Aquarius. And according to the precession of the equinoxes, that would mean that we're in an alignment where we are orienting ourselves in a very specific sort of way to the constellation of Aquarius. So we're at the dawning of that age. And that also means that we are experiencing in an embodied way the temple or the era of Leo, which is the fifth temple, the temple of presence, the temple of the fifth dimension. And so while everyone is talking about the age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is considered the 11th temple, we are having the earthly experience of the age of Leo. And so that's why I feel I've been leaning more deeply into, like, what is that exactly? It's not some like dimension or space that exists like far out there. It is absolutely a state of being that brings us into that state of presence that is like completely unstructured play, and while holding the wisdom of everything that we've experienced before. So it's not like it's not the same sort of like ignorant or naive innocence that you would think of when you think of like a child or a baby playing, even though I wouldn't call that innocent or ignorant or naive at all, maybe a little naive, but we tend to associate the Temple of Leo with children, because we see the children in that innocent, naive, playful abandon. And we often have a hard time understanding, like, how can we experience more of that as adults, knowing everything we know now and having all the responsibilities we have now and understanding time and mortality and all these things, right? But what I feel this time or age is really bringing us to is a total understanding that every present moment exists only as a moment, experiencing the one moment, the only moment that exists. And when we align ourselves to the one moment, there's someone at my front door, but I am not pausing this because they're just standing there. There's someone at my front door just standing there. I think they're looking, they can actually see me. I'm in the middle of something. I'm not pausing this right now. Yeah, they're just gonna have to wait. Sorry for being sidetracked. All right. Oh, yeah. So that one moment that we are all experiencing through the presence. Oh my gosh, now they're at my back door. Hold on. No, I don't know who it is, but they haven't called me or anyways, talk about interruptions, right? Sorry, I'm not starting this video over. We're just gonna have to roll with this. Okay. So as I discussed the fifth dimension, I was on a roll too, dang it. That's okay. So what happens when we access the present moment is something fundamentally changes in our nervous system. Okay, this is like the magic part that I just received. Oh my gosh. I wonder if I could pause. Yay. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I took care of it. And let me just get back. So when you completely align yourself to the present moment and you allow yourself to kind of surrender to exactly what is happening in a somatic way, in an emotional way, you're observing it, you're not judging it, you're being with every single element of it. This does something to our nervous system. It creates this congruence in our nervous system. And this congruence affects the architecture of our reality. Okay. So when we move into the sixth temple of Virgo, the sixth dimension, the sixth space, the sixth space is where all of the blueprints exist, or all of it's like the DNA or the building blocks. And originally I perceived this as something that was like way up high, like way out there, and that somehow the material reality was like filtering through these blueprints. And then the huge aha moment came. I like all the maps just went. And what I understood was that presence aligns all of the cells of the body, all the building blocks of the experiencer, all of the DNA, all of the nervous system. There's when the entire structure and all the felt like bodies of the human align in congruence, something new is created, something whole is created. And that wholeness is what creates the next layer and that's what creates reality. And so like when we talk about the temple of Libra, right? I was talking about these blueprints and how we walk around, and having a whole cohesive understanding of our own blueprint allows us to interact with other people's blueprints. Now, can you imagine how much more whole and complete we would be operating in our lives and in relationship with everyone else if everyone was entered into the fifth dimension of like understanding that, yes, there's commentary, there's story, there's objectification of experiences and meanings and all these things. There's time, there's mortality, there's emotions, there's separation, there's vulnerability, there's all of these things. And we are choosing to be so present with what is that we fully can lock in and harmonize with other people who are also congruent. And so that sixth space of Virgo is what creates and manifests what happens next, what happens in relationship when we step into co-creation or co-manifestation with another being. So the seventh temple of Virgo is the temple of co-creation. The sixth temple is the temple of manifestation. I'll go through these again. I'll just summarize them. But the seventh temple is the temple of co-creation. And this is where new experiences, new reality, completely novel experiences are created. Like, you can have novel experiences all by yourself, but you're still in relationship with something, with the river, with the earth, with your living room, like a total presence of what is gives you a very novel experience that you can now be in relationship with. And that relationship with the novel experience creates something brand new. So the seventh house, new life, this co-creation that we have means that who we're in proximity with absolutely shifts what we're creating next. So it's like completely, do you see how the seventh temple of Libra is in relationship with the first house of Aries, because there's something wholly new that's created and claimed, but this time it's claimed between two whole entities, two whole experiencers. Okay, the initial Aries creates the beginning of the first experiencer, and Libra creates a wholly third entity due to the fact that two experiencers are creating together. I have to say this a few times because I'm like, are you feeling what I'm saying here? Do you see it in your mind's eye? Like, are you getting this? Because I'm getting it, and I still feel that there's more of these images that want to be expressed, so that I'm kind of circling these temples in from like different perspectives so that it lands. So then when we bring the co-creative energies move to the temple of Scorpio, and that's when things get kind of out of control. Like, that's when the transformation happens. That's when the realignment happens. Like, that's when parts of the blueprint of the original initial entity start to shift and change, because Scorpio's testing everything. Scorpio's testing where first, it's not okay in the most like evolved sense of this. Let's say that we all enter the fifth dimension, and let's say that we are all in absolute presence, and let's say that we enter into co-creation with another present being, and we're just like manifesting all this new information, right? And we're not even like holding on to the past. The past is like granules of sand that are just like falling through your fingertips, so that every new experience is so new, and every person you encounter, even though you've known them forever, you're in a wholly new experience with them. So let's say all of this is happening, right? And you enter into the space of Scorpio, where there's just, you start to recognize that the boundaries of self are completely dissolving. There's just like a morph melding. Even the concept that you're a separate being having an experience is what transforms and dies, because the boundaries between your skin and the other person's skin and the experience being a separate entity, it just starts dissolving. And this is where almost like perceived death can occur. And it's not scary. You're not even perceiving it as death, because death would mean that you're putting a meaning or a story to the experience that's happening. You're just simply surrendering to the melting and melding of returning to union. So that's like the most evolved, like that's not evolved, but the most free from fear, free from story, free from resistance experience of the house of Scorpio. So, or the temple of Scorpio. And what happens is it leads to this ninth dimension where there's full epiphany, like there's full union with spirit. And this could feel like a total spiritual experience. This could feel like you're reunited with the origin of all existence. You're reunited with the origin of yourself, with the origin of truth, the totality of all that is. And the truth of that sinks into you. Like, it's like you see God as a treasure of the ninth house. And it almost feels like it could end there. It almost feels like that could be the end of the story. Except it's not. Like, and that's, it makes me emotional. It makes me so emotional. It's not the end of the story. Like, reuniting with God or source is not the end of the story, because we all of a sudden realize in that moment what a tremendous gift being alive actually is. It's like, wow, I could be in union with the source of love endlessly. I could be completely immersed in unity and wholeness and love, and I could be and there could be no separation between me and there I wouldn't even perceive that separation. But in that moment, we have the wisdom of remembering everything that came before. We have the wisdom of remembering the temple of Gemini and the temple of Cancer and the like thrill of Leo and the total magic, like manifestation, creation experience of Virgo, and like then the joy and gift of sharing that with another person, and then completely dissolving into union again. Like, that whole thing is ecstatic. That whole thing is the like greatest thing that has ever been invented. And we get it. This is the epiphany. This is what we get in the temple of Sagittarius, in the ninth temple, in the ninth dimension. And because we get it, we decide, we make the choice. We feel like we couldn't, like, it's the greatest gift to ever be given to step into the temple of Capricorn and bring that truth as a legacy that we leave in the material world. Like that we can produce something by being here, that simply by being here, we are inhabiting a space. We're inhabiting a piece of matter. We're inhabiting a co-creator. We're inhabiting an experiencer. Like, we are something. We are someone. We are separate. We are one with all that is, and we get to operate as a separate entity that just by being alive is producing something incredible. Just by being alive, like we are just emanating the gift of life by being alive. And so, like, can you see, like, we miss the mark so much when we stereotype these temples, and like, even to say, well, I'm a Capricorn, like, what are you talking about? You're a being that gets to experience the world through a temple of Capricorn, that understands the miracle of being alive. I don't know if everyone perceives this. There's a lot of stereotypes about Capricorn, like, but not everyone fully allows themselves to enter into the fifth dimension, right? Like this is a fifth dimensional experience of these temples. And of course, like, almost all of us are carrying all of the abstractions and stories of the houses of Gemini and Cancer, and barely ever let ourselves really fully enter into the temple of Leo, and barely ever actually let ourselves fully embody the temple of Virgo. So you can imagine how every temple that comes after is just trying to fill in the holes and gaps of the first 6 temples. We're just trying to like figure it out. We're running it like we're operating with like little pieces of our DNA, pieces of our blueprint that we can't really access, or we don't really know how to surrender to, or we don't really, you know what I mean? Like, so the 10th temple, the temple of Capricorn, the 10th dimension, is the coming back. It's the returning home. It's not returning home to the temple of Cancer, but it's returning home to the experience of life, to the experience of meaning, to the experience of matter and time, to be our legacy, to be what we've come here to be, with full consciousness, with full awareness, with full like acknowledgement of who everyone else is. It's like they say that the Buddha awakens twice. That the first awakening is when the Buddha awakens to the like self discovery or something like that. The Buddha discovers who the self is. And as soon as the Buddha discovers who the self is, the Buddha realizes that that's not full enlightenment, because full enlightenment would include the enlightenment of all. Because the initial enlightenment enlightens the Buddha to understanding that every single person is an entity of the whole. And unless all of the entities of the whole are enlightened, there is no true enlightenment. And this is not a burden to the Buddha. This is like laughter to the Buddha, because like now the Buddha understands how to devote its life. Now the Buddha understands what life is truly about, and what service truly is, and what devotion truly is. And so, God, it makes me so emotional. And so the 10th house is when we truly enter into our lives with all of the awareness of what we've come from, who we are, and what we're doing here. And that's the legacy that we leave. And that is what informs the temple of the 11th temple, the temple of Aquarius. The temple of Aquarius. Okay, so I wrote down some notes that I'll just go through it at the end, but essentially it's the fabric of all of the threads of experiences it's the fabric that's created by all of life. That's Aquarius. Aquarius is this incredible tapestry that, like, it's so beautiful. It is so unique. There's so many different textures and colors, and like it's so flavored and fragrant and like rich. And so it's fixed. This fabric is fixed. It's fixed air. So I haven't gone in, like I didn't go into you revisit the first video if you need to like hear the fixed and mutable and whatever. Like I'm more giving this layer of it's so high level, but the fabric that we see in Aquarius and how every single person is one thread of that fabric, and how our entire life experience is what makes the color and texture of our single thread. And that single thread will exist on a continuum, like this lifetime is one thread, and that thread is connected to so many threads that existed before it, and it will continue to exist and add more layers and dimensions to the thread. And so it's like this stream of consciousness throughout so many different experiences. And then every single person is another one of these threads weaving this entire experience together, and all of our threads interconnect and interweave and intertwine. And we've never been doing it wrong. We've never impacted someone the wrong way. Our life has never like had the wrong texture, or, you know, it's just that there's a pattern to the fabric that is in this wave. There's a pattern to the fabric that is dark light, dark light, dark light, remembering, forgetting, remembering, forgetting, remembering, forgetting. And then the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius, the age of Capricorn, the age of on and on and on, right? Like there's like these overarching, the weaver is huge. The weaver is like, it's mathematical and geometric. And essentially, if Aquarius embodies the entire woven fabric, Pisces is the entirety. Pisces is like the seeing and acceptance of the entire fabric, taking it in all at once, and understanding that the fabric has never been wrong. The fabric could never be ugly. The fabric is never broken. The fabric is never, it has no beginning and no end. Like there's nothing and all things. It's the absolute entirety, and the experiential space of the absolute entirety is the same experiential space as the singularity. It is the absolute like macro, micro in one space experience that is like a black hole. It's like, to our human minds, we can only understand it like a black hole, and everything, there's no laws in the black hole. We can't even comprehend the inside. You can watch all kinds of videos on it. I'm intrigued with black holes, but only I'm more intrigued with what happens on the boundaries before the black hole and around the outside of the black hole. Like that's more intriguing to me, because that's where the quickening happens, and that's where that toroidal field wraps around and spins. Like that's where all the juice is. That's where all the experiences are. That's where all the temples exist. It's that like band that's around the boundary of the black hole where where the fabric is, where all of it's at, you know. I mean, so to bring this all home, imagine that you are the fabric, and you want to pull out one little string. Like you want to focus and zero in on one little tiny fiber. The little tiny fiber is like microscopic and infinite, right? Like that little tiny fiber is how we enter into the temple of Aries again. And that takes us all the way back into the experience of that toroidal field. So let me I put some notes that I downloaded, like channeled the other day. So the first temple or dimension is singularity, is the black hole, is the nothing and the all. The second dimension or temple of Taurus is polarity and magnetism. The third temple of Gemini or dimension is perception, awareness, observer, mind, and consciousness. The fourth temple or dimension is the temple of Cancer, which is matter, meaning, matter. Oh, get this. Matter is also the root of mother, mother. Mother, it's like the experience of the fact that there could even be a mother is the archetypes. Like the archetypes exist in the fourth dimension. That's like the archetypes of the planets exist in the fourth dimension. That's why I'm just gonna, yeah. So the story, the subconscious, the archetypes, the lore, the mysteries. The fourth house is the matter and the meaning and the story. The fifth house is the presence and the feeling of experience, the novelty of the now. That's the fifth dimension, or the house, the temple of Leo. The sixth dimension is a quantum dimension. It is the manifestation through the codes, the blueprints, the architects, the designers, the DNA, the nervous system, the cellular structure, the atoms, the biology of belief. There's a book called The Biology of Belief. Like whatever the stories and experience in the presence are, that's going to affect the building blocks of our entire body. It's going to change our state through the chemistry of our body. And the chemistry of our body is what creates the way we perceive the current moment. And so we're literally manifesting our experience on a microscopic level, on a blueprint atomic level, on a DNA level. The DNA is what literally produces the tissues that we get to have as a body. And so like whatever is happening in that DNA level, that is what is literally manifesting. Then the seventh temple of Libra, the seventh dimension, is co-creation between two entities, co-creation between two completed cells, right? This would be like, like even the hormone that tells a cell to do something would be the seventh dimension. So the hormone that tells my cells to produce skin, or that directive, is a co-creation of something new, which is skin. But that's a microcosmic level. The macro would be like two people coming together to create a new experience with each other. To the degree that they're able to have a novel experience with each other based on a 5D awareness. Then the eighth dimension, or the eighth temple of Scorpio, is the dimension of transformation, death, realignment, like the dissolving, the like, it is like, it literally is like the caterpillar transforming into the butterfly. It is like fully dissolving the experience of individuated self, so that we could fully enter the epiphany of the ninth temple, or the temple of Sagittarius. So epiphany, remembering, resonance, congruence, like total paradigm, like total union, total enlightenment is the ninth house. And then the 10th house is that moment where the Buddha remembers that realizes that there's a second awakening, that full enlightenment requires collaboration. It doesn't even require, it's not even the feeling of requiring, it's like a feeling of like, it's a gift. It's a gift to show up with this awareness in the third dimension. It's a gift to deliver ourselves to being alive, to like, it's a gift. I can just cry, like literally it makes me cry every time I think about it. So the purpose of the thread is what I named the 10th. It's the purpose of the thread of life, and how the thread of life is important. Like each thread of our lives is so important. And Then the 11th temple is the fabric of all the threads, of every thread throughout time and space. It's the telepathic channel connections that we are all connected to. It's all the fields of consciousness. It's all dimensions. It's every layer of experience. This fabric of all the threads. And then the 12th temple of Pisces is, I'm calling it the entirety, is the entirety of the entire fabric, seen all at once, or been felt all at once. So, whew, that is in a nutshell what I am doing here. That is what I came here to live and experience and share with other people about. Like, this is it. This is like, from this perspective, every single thing is a gift. Stubbing your toe is a gift. Like, feeling the preciousness of sharing a life with someone, and even experiencing the loss of that person through death or through any, like, every every experience is a gift. Every single one of them, every co-creation, every opportunity. That's the acceptance of the fibers, the acceptance of the threads. That's seeing the threads. Like, the way that the 11th temple of Aquarius helps to inform the 5th dimension, or the fifth dimension, or the 5th temple, is if we understand that we are part of that tapestry, and that everyone else is too, then we could just we could just be with it. We could just feel it. We could just witness it. We could just explore it and enjoy it and be our own fiber, because we know how important us being our fiber is to the whole tapestry, and that no part of us is making the tapestry wrong or ugly or knotted. I mean, even the knots are beautiful. Like, no matter what, it's a beautiful tapestry. It's so rich. And there are these like astrological trends that are making the human experience have a certain sound frequency or color frequency that it's like a change. Like, oh my God, I'm seeing all of it. Like, every time a planet moves into a different temple, it changes the color of that planet, and the planet puts a different tone into the human experience, and the human experience responds to the tone, and then the human experience is like producing the color of that thread. And man, if you could see the textures, it's the most elaborate texture, the most elaborate pattern. It's so like, it's like you could get glimpses of it in like the roofs, like the painted, the woven tapestries of South America, or the paintings on like Byzantine or like Middle Eastern temples. On the inside of their temples, you can see the intricacy of the patterns that repeat over and over and over, and they're just so intricate and detailed. I mean, when you're in plant medicine and you see the tapestry, like through ayahuasca or even psychedelics, you know, it's like you're getting a glimpse of the tapestry. Like the Matrix sort of implied, the movies, the Matrix, they sort of implied like these like streams, but it's so much more beautiful and rich than that. Like, it's so much less malefic. It's like so much. It's so much more. And even like, could you imagine a tapestry without any black in it? Or could you imagine a tapestry without any darkness, where it's only light colors? Like, there's the darkness and the light colors. They create these patterns that undulate, and I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And like, we don't have to do anything to weave it. Just being alive is what's weaving the tapestry. So that's the temples between Capricorn and Pisces. I mean, that's all of it. And I'm just so honored to have been able to see this and deliver this information to you. Like, I'm so honored to be able to see. And I hope in some way my words have translated what I see. I hope some way you were able to like hop on this bridge that my life creates so that you can see what I see. Because it's so damn beautiful. And it's such a huge gift to be alive, to be able to witness any part of reality. There's no leaving this space. There's no escape. I mean, we can die, but even death just produces a new piece of the thread. I mean, we're so interwoven. Our consciousness can never be destroyed. It just changes colors. I mean, it's gorgeous. I'm just absolutely in awe. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and that's all I have to say for this video. We have 2 more, and I'm going to use the last 2 as integration videos. We'll probably look at some charts, and we'll just get like an overall, like, so what does this mean for our natal chart? Let's bring it back down to the thread, which is great. I love it. So anyways, see you all then. Bye-bye.